Hello and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 with me, Crafty Simulations. Now, obviously I like to theme this channel on general aviation aircraft, and over the past few months I have had quite a few expensive aircraft, had some cheaper aircraft, we've had some free ones, but I like to think that sometimes you don't have to pay an awful lot of money for a really good product. Now, if I look at probably one of the best single-engined general aviation aircraft here on the flight sim, that would probably be the A2A Comanche 250. It is quite expensive. Not a bad thing, because it is quite an aircraft, let's be honest. This aircraft which you see before you is not that expensive. This is actually part of the famous Flyer pack or series of aircraft that's been released over the months and years of the lifespan of the flight sim. And this is the famous Flyer 3. And this is the Beechcraft Bonanza V35. Now, I haven't featured this on the channel. In fact, as of about 2 days ago, I didn't even have this on my flight sim. I bought this and another aircraft, which will feature in another video. It's a GA aircraft, so it obviously fits my channel quite nicely. But I was actually quite literally blown away with the flight. The first flight I took of this aircraft, I only noticed there was one issue with it that I found, and I will go into that a little bit more in the ahead of time here. This aircraft is really, really good. Now, it's made in cohorts with Carenado and Microsoft, stroke Asobo. Now, I know a lot of people have a downer on Carenado as a company as a whole. I don't. I come from the vintage of FSX, the days of FSX, and I had quite a lot of Carenado aircraft, and this was one of them. Now, this is not a port of an aircraft from FSX, from Carenado's history. This is a recreation in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 of an aircraft that was created before in a previous sim. Now, there are two versions of this aircraft in reality. There is the one of which you see before you, and I have covered a rather unique part of this aircraft up with the way this camera is set up, and there is a traditional aircraft. The part I've covered up is the tail. That's right, we're going to be flying the V-tail. Before I go on to this fantastically impressive piece of equipment, let's show some of the aircraft off. Remember, this is not, if I centralise the view a little bit better, this is not obviously a full, let's just say it's not a full fidelity aircraft. It's got a lot of stuff in there that you would use and can use in long distance flights and all that. It's fully capable, but it's not A2A, let's be honest. But it is really, really beautiful. Especially if you're a fan of general aviation, this aircraft looks really, really good. Even when you zoom it in, it looks really, really detailed. Lots of time and effort went into the undercarriage. You can see the heater sections of the propeller de-icing section, the boots, I think they call that, I'm not 100%. It looks an absolutely fantastic aircraft. Good reflections on the wings. I mean, this is sort of like a flight simulator standard aircraft, as I would call it, where it's not been made by a proper company like, let's say, Just Flight or anything. They've stepped out of the way and just created this aircraft from nothing, and they've made a fantastic job, or not so fantastic job in some companies' cases. But this one is made in cahoots with Microsoft stroke Asobo, so you wouldn't be expecting too much from this aircraft. However, it it looks absolutely fantastic, and that V-tail just makes it look so different. It makes it look like it's a brand spanking new 21st century aircraft. In reality, it isn't. The Bonanza has been around for donkey's years in the two different variants, obviously, of having a normal T-tail and this rarer V-tail version. Just whichever way you look at it, it looks absolutely stunning, I think, is a way of looking at it. I mean, you can just look at the panels. You know, they're not completely smooth. There's even, I can't remember the actual terminology you'd have, but it's not a completely smooth surface. It's an aircraft that's being used, and it shows it. It's absolutely fantastic. Externally, this is a fantastic looking aircraft. Now, before we jump on to, obviously, the interior of this aircraft, as soon as in a bit, we've got to talk about this V-tail arrangement. Now, I'm going to get a little bit boring here, and I'm probably going to get things a little bit wrong, but a traditional aircraft has a traditional tail. Obviously, the V-tail here doesn't have that. It's got this arrangement. I don't know why Beechcraft went with this arrangement. Honestly, I haven't got a clue. I haven't really looked into it too much. But a traditional tail has an upright surface that deals with the rudder and then has elevators put on the horizontal surfaces. The V-tail here has to have rudder as well as elevators. So they created like a piece of equipment here that has to do two jobs at once. So as we pull the stick up and back, we get obviously the elevators, and then as we kick the rudder, it moves the elevators as well. So you get this arrangement where you have the flight surfaces not doing just one job, they have to do two jobs. And it's just fantastic, and I love this because it's Ingenuity. And I love Ingenuity. I don't know whether it was a problem that needed solving, because let's be honest, if we look at all these GA aircraft here, they all have traditional tail arrangements. But the Bonanza here, the V-tail, doesn't. It's different. So I love that, and it's fantastic, and it's a unique aircraft. I don't think there's many V-tails left flying in the world. But, like I say, it is a fantastic arrangement. So let's jump on inside before I start dribbling on about various things. So, like I say, this is not a proper company's aircraft, although it was made by Carenado. And they have had previous track history with the V-tail Bonanzas and GA aircraft in general. So we can expect this thing to look pretty darn good, and it looks pretty darn good. Obviously, we have an arrangement here where it is, we don't have, let's say, the mini tablet. We don't have that in this aircraft. We have a manual down there, but you can't click on it. So we don't have too many options as to like changing the avionics or anything silly like that. But we do have a very functional cockpit and a very functional aircraft, and that's what I do love about this. So let's jump into what we get instrumentation wise. So we end up with an 8-pack here. So it's typical, obviously, navigational equipment over here. Slip and turn, I do believe, is that one? Well, I don't know the technical term for it. Obviously, airspeed, compass, altimeter, vertical speed, and obviously then the compasses and whatnot for navigational purposes. Moving on to the central section, we have your engine section. So manifold pressure, fuel flow, RPM, fuel in both tanks. What do we have here? So this is instrument air. I have no idea what that is, if I'm honest. Obviously, that's all the cylinder temperature, oil temperature, amps, and oil pressure. So that's your T's and P's, very important. Flap indicator is down here, so we have, by the look of it, 3 positions, up, 15 degrees, and fully down. Moving on to the avionics of this aircraft, we have a GNS 530, not my favourite piece of avionics technology, if I'm honest, and I will not be using it today. I'll be using Navmap, but it's functional, it works with the aircraft. We have, is this the Bendix? Yeah, the old Bendix King radio section. Then we have an autopilot, a basic autopilot system down here. A bit more navigational equipment down here. So this would be, again, a Bendix King system. So again, I'm not going to be flying it that far to warrant it. Transponders down here, and below we have the fuse panel. Again, it's not a fully functional fuse panel, so again, it's not a deal breaker. I keep saying that with fuse panel, it's not a deal breaker. I know a lot of people like to have functionality of the fuse panel. This aircraft retails for a little over £8, so let's not be expecting too much from it. Obviously, we have a rather unique centrally mounted flight column. Obviously, the usual clip points to remove that. If we do remove that, we have lighting and battery, alternator, your prop de-ice. So we don't have wing de-ice, so we have no boots on the wings, but we do have the little boots on the propeller blades that I showed at the start. So again, we have some lighting for panel lights and floodlights. Moving on to the engine sections, we have obviously the throttle and the prop pitch, and if I can find it on my stick, we have obviously a mixture. And we do have sounds for the various bits and pieces. Flap switches down here, but I've obviously got that mounted to my actual stick, or my Thrustmaster throttle, I should say. Yeah, it's very, very good. I like it. It's crisp, it's clear, it's a little bit... Well, I say it's clear. It is a little bit cluttered in the fact that you do have quite a lot of instrumentation, but if you actually break it down into, this is the stuff you use to actually fly, that's the engineering section, and that's the avionics section, and once your lights are set, you don't really play around with lights too often. It's quite an easy plane to fly. So if you like your general aviation aircraft, this is a very, very good aircraft. All the clip spots, we do have a totally useless and only one position light shade, sunshade, I should say. Completely and utterly, I mean, yeah, it completely darkens everything off, but as soon as my view is like this, it's next to useless. So, not the best one I've seen in Flight Simulator. Some pretty good sunshades out there, but this one doesn't have that. We do have a clip spot even, for the little cat flap, and we can, if I remember correctly... Oh, where's my button? Oh yeah, we don't actually have, I just realised, opening the door, you would imagine that this is a door you can open for the pilot to get out. You can't. This is not a door that's openable, but this one is. So, open that up, good sounds, and yeah. So, again, we don't have a cat flap on the right-hand side, but we'll leave that open for our startup. So yeah, it's a very good aircraft. Let's look at the textures, shall we? So we've got the usual, the criminal of any flight sim is the leather seats, and to be honest with you, these look pretty good. Coloured of the age of the aircraft, but yeah, they show a little bit of wear and tear where you would be sitting, which is to be expected. Very, very good. I've seen aircraft look a lot worse in their interiors, especially when you start looking up. The textures usually go a little bit pants, but this one looks pretty darn good. So remember, this is, I think I purchased it for £8.29p. I think it goes up to the dizzying heights of about £12. Obviously, that's UK pounds, whatever the cost is in your country. And it is a very, very good aircraft. It looks very good. You've got little marks on the glass. You know, it shows an aircraft that's been worked, been lived in, and been used. And it is an old aircraft. I wouldn't expect it to be crystal clear, but a very, very good cockpit. Could do with a little bit more wear and tear on the column here, but it's not bad. So yeah. So where are we? Because it's an American aircraft, we're back at Martha's Vineyard, which is in America land. And we're going to do a little flight around the airfield, around the island really. And yeah, that's the plan anyway. So as you can see, we do have the obligatory person sat with us. Unfortunately, He's very brave and jumped out the aircraft when it comes to actually starting up the thing. So yes, let's get things ready to go, shall we? So it's a very basic aircraft. If you know how to start up a single-engine general aviation aircraft, most of them are pretty much the same. So we have the fuel tank selected, set to left main. Batteries coming on. So fuel, we're sitting at about half a tank on the pair. We shall have beacon light on because now we're a live aircraft. Nav lights are going to come on as well. Mag switch is down there. Just want to check everything else out before we start fiddling with things. So flap lever is set to up. Undercarriage lever, I can't remember where that is. I know I've seen it somewhere. Oh yeah, it's right there. Quick little story. The second aircraft, which will feature in the next video, I forgot that the undercarriage lever was selected up on my Thrustmaster throttle section, and when I started the aircraft and powered it up, it was screaming at me with a rather annoying alarm to say that obviously the undercarriage lever was selected up while I was on the ground. Not good. So yeah, let's put that back on again. So lights on. Right, let's turn track IR on now, and we'll centre that back up again. So we are clear on the left, clear on the right. Pot pitch full, mixture full. I'm just going to have to reach and get to that. Good fuel flow. Set. Magneto set to both. And we'll sit on the brakes. We should have the wheel brakes, parking brakes set. So, we'll just yell out, clip up. Set at about 1,000 RPM. And we'll shut that up. Avionics coming on. Let the navigational equipment load up. So as you can hear, if I've got the sounds right, let's just check. Yeah, sounds look good. Sounds look good. Sound good even. As you can hear, very good sounds, and this is one of the things that Carenado usually get pretty darn good. I know there's been a few aircraft where the sounds have been a bit questionable, but this one is not one of them. This one is actually pretty darn good. So we'll let the Garmin unit load up to the point where I can click on it. Let it search out its satellites. And we'll set the transponder to on for the time being, squawking 1200, because we're in America. If you believe in the UK, you'd be squawking 7,000 for basic VFR flight. So, we'll start leaning the engine out a little bit. So T's and P's all look good and in the green. We'll set our... Let's set for about 2,500. I don't know whether we're going to use the autopilot. The autopilot is very simple in this aircraft. I have found, anyway. I'm using my G1000 avionics suite that I actually have as part of my cockpit. There's various different, obviously, commands, buttons that will actually work, even though I don't have a G1000 set up here in the aircraft. So we will zoom this in a little bit. Oh, we don't need to. Well, actually, we'll zoom that out. So we're going to fly around Martha's Vineyard today. It's a lovely day. So we will zero our altimeter because we're staying local. So we shall do a test of the controls, and to the left and to the right. Working. And if we look back, the rather unique looking V-shape rudder, so we can actually do a check of the rudder, and that's working correctly. So Flap set to half. Confirmed both sides. Flap set full. Confirm both sides. Flap travelling up. Flaps up. So because this isn't like an A-to-A aircraft, yes, we do have T's and P's to worry about, but it's not got, obviously, bits and pieces that are going to fail. So, coming off the parking brake, and we shall get going. We'll be taking off runway 24, so we've got a bit of a taxi run up to the right. So far, you're probably wondering what's the negative of this aircraft. It's cheap, it's got a smallish amount of repaints, and quite good ones at that. It's got very good interior, very good externals. What's the downside? Well, weirdly, it's the trim. Also, if you've noticed, I'm having this issue at the moment, this ghosting related issue here. I've tried all sorts of things to get rid of it, but it only appears when the ground is underneath the wings like that. So just try and ignore that. But yes, the downside is the trim. The trim is ferociously effective. Normally you have to press it quite a few times to get the aircraft to respond when you're trying to trim it out. Not this one. No. This one, you trim up, you trim down, you trim up, you trim down, and eventually get it set just how you want it. So yeah, this ghosting effect you see, it does bug me, it really does. I've read into it as quite a few people have complained of various different ghosting artifacts. And there's never really seemed to be a fix. I've tried various different things, but it seems to stick. So if you know how you managed to solve the ghosting issue, please let me know. It's driving me nuts. So we're going to park up just here and we'll do our run-up test. So we're clear behind. Yes, we are. Right, so parking brake is set. Mixture is coming full. Pop pitch is full. Right, so we're going to run her up to 2,000 RPM and we should do a mag check. There's 2,000. A little bit of a decrease in RPM, which is what we expect. Decrease over to the left side. Both mags are running about the same. We'll start cycling the prop pitch. And run-up check's complete. Probably a very basic version. Right, so squawking now to altitude even. Landing lights are on. Strobe lights. Well, actually, we're going to turn the landing lights off. We don't need it. It's very bright. We'll do a flapless takeoff. Like I say, we're taking off on runway 24 into a left-hand departure to follow the coast around Martha's Island. Martha's Vineyard even. And yes, we'll be coming back in on runway 24. So autopilot even. Autopilot is set for 2,000. We'll set the runway heading when we get onto the runway. So let's go. Then a fuel pump on. So clear on arrivals. Last minute control check. Right, mixture set, prop pitch set, flaps not required, lights are set, fuel pump is set. Let's go. Coming up 50%. Let the engine catch up. Airspeed is live. There's 60, 70, nose up, and we're airborne. Tap the brakes, gear coming up. Turn off that pesky sound. So it's about 130 knots. And we'll start our left hand. So, autopilot coming on. Flight level change. Set for 1,000. Heading mode selected. And now let the autopilot climb up 2,000 feet. Passing 1,000 feet. But there we are. Very simple plane to take off. Like I said, trim is very, very sensitive. So if you are going to purchase this, and I do wholly recommend this aircraft, I really do. Just notice this trim is very, very sensitive. Something I also like to see is the little things in Flight Simulator aircraft when they put the extra little bit of effort into it. So we have a vane here. I'm not sure exactly what technically it is. Could be an anti-static line of some sort, but it's shaking in the wind flow, so I do like to see that. So currently flying over Katama Air Park. Another piece of add-on scenery that I got. Only 2 airfields on the island. So at the moment we're flying in what is known as heading mode. If I get my foot off the wood pedals. Yeah, so we're flying on heading mode, which means basically the aircraft is chasing this little bug here. Obviously we haven't set up a flight plan. If I set up a flight plan and have a magenta line to chase, we could set it into nav mode and fly towards the magenta line, and then the aircraft will basically follow the line on the route. But we haven't set one of those up. So at the moment this is like a basic autopilot. We've got the altimeter set, we're climbing for 2,500 feet, and we are currently chasing in heading mode, so just chasing this. So as I change the heading dial, as you can see, the aircraft wants to start turning. A very rudimentary but basic navigational system. And as the indicator tells you here, the autopilot is selected and heading mode is selected as well. So on the whole, very, very good sounds in this aircraft. I've always, like I say, Carinado aircraft sometimes can be a little bit hit and miss, especially like on idle sounds. There can be a little bit too much or a little bit not enough. I think the sounds of this aircraft are actually very, very good. Across the range of the engine, of the throttle settings. So I never really purchased much of the famous Flyer series of aircraft, but this aircraft, I was just looking online to see what else I can purchase, and you know, falls in the general aviation collection, and this is just one of them, and I'm really glad I got it. I mean, yes, it would be nice to change this over to a GTN 750, which I'm more accustomed with, or more used to, but it's a good navigational system. You can set up, obviously, a direct to flight route, and you can put normal routes in. I'm not the bestest person to explain to you how that avionics works. There are far better people out there that have done that. A very unique looking aircraft. But definitely a very good looking aircraft. So we're going to let the autopilot come off now. So heading mode off, autopilot off. There's the beep. We'll do a nice steady right-hand turn. Bring ourselves slowly back onto the glide slope for our approach back into runway 24. Good visibility in the Beechcraft. It's pretty much what you'd expect. Just keeping an eye on the airspeed. Kind of vary between 500 foot and about 1,000 foot. Decrease in altitude per minute. I'm trying to see if I can click on the fuel tank selector, because we should be landing on the fullest tank, which would be the right-hand tank, because we're currently running on the left-hand tank. But always a bit wary to click on that, because knowing my luck and knowing Flight Simulator, it will put myself onto no tanks. So just turn the landing lights on. The runway is in sight. Currently off to our 2 o'clock. Still sitting at about 500 foot rate of decrease. So, flaps going down to 1 position. And confirmed. Airspeed check. Undercarriage coming down. 3 green. So, final checks, gear down, flaps 1 stage. Airspeed decreasing down to about 100. Need to be landing a little bit above 80. Slipping onto finals. Mixture full. Want to make our approach around the 100 knot mark. Good clear visibility. This is where the concentrating happens. Over threshold. Pulling the throttle back, pulling the nose back. And we're down. Bit of a rough landing. Wiki. And back to that terrible ghosting. It really is a problem. So there we are. Flaps coming up. Squawking now just on. Landing lights coming off. Strobe lights coming off. By Mr. Tug. So engine off, avionics coming off. Beacon lights off, nav lights off, flaps are up, mixture is pulled. Batteries off. So there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Beechcraft V35 V-Tail Bonanza, conveniently parked up to what looks like a conventional Bonanza, weirdly. It wasn't planned like that, but hey-ho. Is it a good aircraft? I think so. The only one negative, like I say, is the trim sensitivity. I think you can probably dial that as well. But yeah, it is a very good aircraft, very good sounds, handles really good. Good autopilot and avionics. If you know the GMS 530, then you're probably onto a winner. I'm not really a total fan of that system. Like I say, I'm more into the GTN 750 or G1000 system. But it is a very good aircraft, very fast. for GA aircraft, and you could do this for, you know, cruising the country kind of thing, kind of flying. My parking is absolutely terrible, I've just realised. But yeah, it's a very good aircraft, and on top of that, I think it's retailing, as of this video being made now, at about £8.49, I think it was, or £8.29. So it is very cheap, and even if it's full price, it's only something like £12, so it is really, really, really cheap. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions or comments about the VTail Bonanza, please bang them below, and I will see you in a future Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 video with another piece of iconic aviation.